Hey everybody, welcome back to the Behind the Build podcast, episode number 2. I'm the host, Jeff Lanzer, sitting here with the co-host, Robert McMillan Jr. And today we're going to be talking about the B word. Budgets. Budgets. Budgets, why they're important, why we need one in the beginning, and moving forward as far as information, being able to guide a client through the job. So, Robert, first of all, just go over why are budgets important to have in the beginning?
Because we want to spend all of your money, primarily.
Primarily.
The main reason. So,
yeah,
no.
That's what everyone else thinks.
That's what everyone thinks. And any reputable contractor is trying to get a budget just so they can steer you in the right direction.
Right.
It's to get a feel for if your budget's realistic, if we're way out of bounds, if you're way under, way over, and really just to help us say, okay, you've got a budget of X, we think you can do that project within X. Right. Or you've got a project of $1,000 and your bathroom costs $20,000, and automatically we can say, that's not realistic, maybe we should look at something else.
Right.
And so it's not it's most people when they call in and they say, hey, we try and ask for the budget and we want to get to an answer. They have this feeling that if they give us their budget, their real budget, that we're going to spend every dollar that they have.
Right.
And it's not that. If, a comparison that I like to use is kind of like a car. You've used houses and a real estate agent. I think yours is a little bit better, whereas you go to a real estate agent and you're in the $350,000 range for a beginner home or some new home. There's no point of that real estate agent showing you $1 million homes if your budget is $350,000. Mm-hmm. Same thing with construction. If you're in a certain budget range, we can scale the project to that or away from that, depending on what you have.
Right. Initially clients have the fear of we just want to meet your budget. And that is in a sense somewhat true, but it's guiding, right? Yes. It's not 100% true, but we might say it's just like looking for a house. If your budget is 300 to 400, that real estate agent might say, hey, you can get this within 400, but then you can also say, dial back and say, well, I really don't want to, let's look at 350.
Right.
And what can we get for 350? And then we can say, okay, but having that information up front is extremely valuable.
Correct. Having that information up front, it also helps us. So there's some fundamental costs that are going to be the same no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. But once you get into selections, that budget's truly important. Right. I know we use it all the time. Trying to explain it is just, say we're doing a kitchen. We can go pick up a standard range oven combo slide in from one of the big box stores for $500-$800 at the cheapest, or you can get on the high end and you can spend $15,000 to $20,000 on just one appliance. And so knowing that budget helps us give you a realistic allowance for appliances in the front end. Kind of helps guide us in which kind of fixtures we're going to use, what materials we're going to use, and then again, if the overall scope of what you're talking about can fit in that budget.
Right. So why do you think people are so scared initially of giving us? Is it a lack of knowledge, you think, or is it really just they don't want to show their cards initially?
I think it's a lack of knowledge, and I was thinking about this earlier before we came in here, and the house comparison, or purchasing a house or purchasing a car, and any of those items. So those items are already pre-built. Yeah, they're on the lot, or they've got a sign out front that says this house is X, this car is X.
You can go on Zillow and kind of see pricing.
You can compare, and when it comes to construction or remodeling, your project is just, it's in the air right now. And so you're relying on experts like us to tell you what it's going to cost. And I think that's where the fear comes in is people are afraid that they're going to either come across or get with somebody who either is just trying to take advantage of them,
Mm-hmm.
or they're guarded to a certain point until they get a comfort level saying that, okay, these guys are legitimate. They know what they're talking about. They're not trying to just squeeze me for everything I have.
Right.
They're actually telling me, what things cost.
Right.
And so I think that's where that fear comes in, is there's this large unknown that's not already pre-made. And then every job is, in the remodeling industry, or really every home is truly a one-off. You can get a little more production in the spec building, but for the most part, they're something slightly different on every single one.
Right. So what do you recommend someone who's thinking about doing a project, how to go through the process of coming up with something, as far as, except for just looking at their bank account and saying, I have X amount, just kind of thinking through maybe a project, how to come up with an initial budget before they call in? Or
Research. There's plenty of good places to go. There's plenty of bad places to go on the internet. So look for more credible sources. So either, the Home Builders Association, you've got NARI, you've got places like Remodelers Advantage, and a lot of other different areas. House has actually some pretty good, budget ranges, so you can click on a photo and it tells you how much that kitchen costs. So unlike Pinterest, where you're looking at a kitchen and it's like, man, that kitchen sure is pretty. I got a $20,000 budget. If you go over to House and look at that same kitchen, it could be a $150,000 kitchen.
Right.
So there's different avenues. A lot of contractors have some general pricing on their websites. So those are some good resources. And then just talk to other people who have had, a bathroom remodel completed for them. Go look at their bathroom remodel, see what it is, and if it's kind of in the range of what you're thinking.
Right. And I think too, I guess once we get into you start inviting people, either other contractors or us, once you start talking to people and they're throwing out budgetary numbers, people can get confused sometimes, as far as like, we might come out and say, well, that bathroom is $20,000 to $40,000, and then you have someone else come out and say, well, no, that's like $5,000. And what's a reason why that might be different? Why they might come in and say, hey, no, whoa, that's $5,000 bathroom. Why would we maybe be higher in that sense initially? So like on an initial consult or something of that nature,
we may be looking at it and we're automatically assuming we're going to gut the entire bathroom.
Right.
We're going to replumb the entire bathroom. We're going to true up the walls. We're going to reframe. We're going to do a lot of work to basically make that bathroom brand new. Somebody else may come in and say, well, we can do this with just, putting some lipstick on it. We can change the fixtures. We can paint the walls. We can change the countertop. We can purchase cabinets, again, at a box store. There's a lot of variables in there, and it really depends on the contractor's skill level, what quality jobs they're used to, and then what you're looking for as well. That kind of feeds back into another area where we're trying to get people is a design agreement. And so in our design agreements, to avoid this, well, this guy said this and this guy said this, let's put together a full plan for your bathroom that's laid out, that has the selections, has your tile, has your demo schedule, has everything in there that we're going to do. And then, you could take that and you could shop that between a couple of contractors. You're still not going to get exactly apples to apples, but you're getting much closer.
Right. Yeah, and I think one of the issues, especially when it comes to contracting, and just stories that I've heard of, oh my gosh, this contractor ripped me off. I got totally, just robbed by this contractor. It's, I got 3 quotes, and this guy was so much higher than the other guy, so we went with the cheaper contractor. And just like what you were saying, you weren't looking apples to apples, and then that other contractor took your money, didn't show up, or just left.
And nothing against I'm not trying to say anything bad about the guy who's the cheapest. But I can't tell you one scenario where I've talked to a customer that we lost a job to somebody that was cheaper, that they were happy in the end, or they didn't call us later or run into us later, or we do a project for them next time and say, I sure wish I would have gone with y'all. I didn't realize what I was, getting into. It's like anything. I mean, you you pay for what you're getting. So if you're paying the lowest price, expect the lowest quality. If you're paying the highest price, you should expect the highest quality.
Yeah, right.
And then also just on that, again, research. It's easy to do research these days. Look at the company. How long have they been around? How many projects have they completed? What have they done? And as far as jobs like you're looking for them to do, how many bathrooms have they done? How many kitchens have they done? Social media. Do they have a website? Do they have Instagram? Do they have Facebook? Do they have all these things where they're putting out exactly what they're producing on a daily basis?
Right.
It's a really good indicator for you to be able to see as a customer, like, these guys know what they're doing, or at least you can see the quality and what's going into their projects.
Right. Yeah, I think social media is a big part. When we look at builders all the time on Instagram and everything, and I think when a builder is open with what they're doing, showing you the work that's going into it, showing the products that they're using, and being much more upfront kind of with basically the product that you're going to get in the end, I think that is just invaluable in that sense, where I have much more trust and faith in that person that we're following. We follow a lot of builders around the U.S.
Yeah,
but it's very interesting.
It is, but it's a good insight into their world and like the steps that they go into. So anybody can come into your house and say, we do X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them will just say that to get their foot in the door, and then they don't do X, Y, and Z. That is one of the beautiful things about social media is you can watch projects, you can follow their projects, and you can see what all they do. So if they're preaching about keeping a job site clean, you can look at their photos and stories and see if they're keeping their job site clean. And if they're not posting stuff kind of in between, the build process, not saying that is a red flag, but it may be something to just question.
Sure. I think that's just a great way to show your stuff. That's one reason why we're doing it. One reason why we're doing this,
Correct.
Is to kind of give you a look inside our business and say, we're not just some contractor coming out to your house. We have a team here. We have processes in place to make sure that you get the best job possible. So I think we're straying off of
the B word.
The B word. Anyway, so we kind of got on a social media tangent there a little bit. But as far as budgets go, initially for a client who comes in and we want to meet with them and kind of get a gauge, right? Yeah. So should they be scared off if we give them a budget they might be like, whoa, okay, someone already told me 5,000, you're coming 20 to 40. Should they be scared off?
No, you shouldn't be scared off. But if you're getting ranges that are that different, that somebody comes in and says $5,000, and then somebody else says this could be anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000, you should take a step back and think about it and say, why is that? Mm-hmm. You should also look at it and say, okay, is that $20,000 to $40,000 more realistic? If that's not in my budget, maybe I should wait and come back and do the project when I'm ready to do it, versus taking that $5,000, going ahead and doing that project, doing it halfway, and not being happy with the outcome.
Right.
So don't be scared of the budgets. And again, when we give budget ranges, basically what we're trying to do is get you into a realistic area of what those projects cost. We've got a ton of data just from, again, we've been in business 40 years. We've done a lot of bathrooms, we've done a lot of kitchens, a lot of additions. We've got a pretty good feel for what it cost, and where these things should be. So giving you those ranges is really just to try and get you into the right mind frame of what the project should cost, or where you're going to be somewhere in there.
Right. And two, the design agreement part of that. So when we get a budget from you, we're trying to hone that in with our design agreement. Make sure that we get your selections and everything. So when you're going to other contractors who might say, hey, then no, that's $5,000. And then you come to them with the scope of work that's included. You come to them with the selections that we had. And then they're like, whoa, okay, that's way more than what we were thinking. that's how you get apples to apples.
Correct.
You get a plan, you get a scope of work, you get selections. That's how you can gauge accurately the contractors come into your home.
Correct. And they're on that. So if you're just meeting with 5 contractors, and I've got to say, you come to my contractor comes to my house, I've got a kitchen that I want to remodel. You walk in, hey Steve, I want to remodel my kitchen.
Steve.
They come in, they take a few measurements, they go away. Next guy comes in, John, he comes in and it's like, hey, I want to remodel my kitchen. It's here. And you do that 5 times. You may not tell them all the same thing, except for I want to remodel my kitchen. Most of the time, those initial visits are pretty, generic. It's looking at it. So you've got 5 different people who walk away with 5 different ideas of what you were thinking. And they also have 5 different skill levels or 5 different qualities of product that they're probably going to be offering. So you're going to get 5 different answers in a wide range. You may have a couple of those guys who are kind of in the same line. But for the most part, just having those initial meetings, you're not getting very accurate information. And that goes back to why we try and give ranges, so that you have an idea of this could be here, this could be here. On the lower end, I think we're going to be here. If we want to scale things up, we're probably going to be here. Right.
And I think too, just to go back to what you were saying as far as the 5 different people, I mean, one question can move a budget $10,000 or so. I mean, if one contractor asks one question that the others didn't, his estimate could go up 10,000, 20,000, where if you're doing an addition, let's say, and that one contractor comes into your home and says, well, we're building this and it's going to be part of your new roof system. So we're adding on a new roof. Would you want to replace your entire roof to match? That one question could make his quote go up that margin.
Yeah. I mean, that could be a swing of, $2,600 to $25,000. Right. And I looked at a job the other day, the exact same thing happened. Customer had a project and there were things that I saw on it. It was an addition they did several years ago. You can see where they tooled in the brick, where they did a small little addition. The roof, they just patched in just the corner that they added on. And even the gutters, they just took, like a 10-foot section and cut them in. Whereas if I was looking at that, we would have at least replaced a large portion of the roof so it blended better, if not suggested replacing the entire roof. The gutters, for sure, we would have replaced at least full length on either side of the house. And then the brick, a lot of times there's not much you can do there. But those little things, again, that's a $20,000 swing in what 2 people would have done.
Right. Yeah. And so just a couple questions that one contractor asks versus the next. That's important. And that's why getting on the same page with everybody is incredibly important, especially up front when you're talking just generic numbers too.
Yes.
As far as hitting those budgets, we have the design agreement in place.
Correct.
But when you come up with those budgets, what do we look at? We look at previous data, correct?
Yeah. So we're looking at previous data. We're looking at, so just take a bathroom. Certain size, basically we've done 50 of these bathrooms in this size range over the past 10 years. This is roughly what they cost per square foot. And then we go plus or minus, that price. And that's what guides us on our, budget ranges.
Right.
Once we get into the design agreement and, we establish those budgets, that's where we start building it out. And as we're building it, we're kind of pricing it so that we can say we're either staying in budget or, hey, these selections that we're making are getting us out of budget. Do you want to continue with that, or do we need to start scaling those things back, so that we can stay in those budgets?
Gotcha. Well, I think we pretty much covered the B word.
You think we got it?
I think we got it. Because, once we get into the design agreement, that's where we hammer things out.
Right.
And so these are just initial numbers, how to come up with them on the client side, initially before you even reach out to us. And then to when we come, say, we're thinking this number, not to necessarily be scared about it, but hammer out the details. And that's what the design agreement's
And
for.
so, yeah, I guess back to the initial where we started, don't be scared of the budget.
Right.
Don't be scared of the question. Give a real answer. It speeds up the process if we get a realistic budget from the beginning. So don't say I've got a $5,000 budget, but in the back of your head you really have $25,000.
Right.
Because more than likely on that initial visit, if we come out and it's a $5,000 budget to do this bathroom, and we don't get a good sense that there's any wiggle room in that, we're probably going to say we're not a good fit for you and we're going to move on. Whereas if you say I've got a $25,000 or $20,000 budget, I'd like to stay in, and we look at it and we say, okay, that's a realistic budget. We can look at it, and then we'll, if you're good between here and here, we can move forward.
Right.
So,
yeah, and then once you start making those selections, that's when, hey, we're looking at potentially exceeding that $20,000 budget or under, do you want to look at some different things? And so even if we came in at 19 or anything like that, hey, do you want to do this cool fixture?
right.
Do you want to do, and that's where you can start playing with it too.
And you can have the opportunity to make those decisions ahead of time.
Right.
Versus in the job, and now we're over budget, already started halfway through, and you're in trouble at that point.
Right. And that's the worst part is with some other people, or even before we even had design contracts or this process in place, we would start a job and, potentially a client would have a budget, potentially not. But then there might be a detail that comes up and it's like, we could do something really cool here.
Right.
We could add this, we could do this here. And then all of a sudden that starts swinging the price when that could have been figured out up front.
Right. And just that example, it's real easy to get into a project where things aren't figured out. And it's like, well, I'm going to spend a little more on this fixture. I'm going to spend a little more on this appliance. I'm going to spend a little more on this. I'm going to spend a little more on this. And those little mores they don't seem big at one time, but when you put them all together at the end, you've made $10,000 worth of little mores. Then they become scary and you didn't realize that you got there.
Yeah.
So we're trying to avoid that.
Right. Those uh-ohs at the end.
Correct.
But yeah, and that's why we hammer out all those details beforehand.
But it starts with a budget.
But it starts with the budget. So, all right, that's gonna do it for us in episode 2 of Behind the Build podcast. Don't forget
to subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm not sure exactly where I'll be posting this. But I'm assuming everywhere.
It's going to be everywhere.
It's going to be everywhere.
It's going to be huge.
So anywhere we are, you should subscribe, follow, tweet at. No, we don't have a Twitter. We're not going to have a Twitter.
No, we're not doing Twitter.
No. Instagram, follow us. YouTube, subscribe. What other? No, I don't
Facebook.
think Facebook, follow.
Yeah.
That's it.
Or Facebook like.
No, follow.
Do you follow?
I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Anyways,
On
anywhere
Facebook.
we are, if you see our faces, make sure to
hit the button.
Anyway. All right. End it. We're done.